everybody, and welcome to another Rise Above the Noise episode. Now, have you ever wondered why some voices get heard while others get lost in the noise? Well, it's not luck, it's actually strategy. And today, we're talking to Samantha Russell, a prolific keynote speaker, a content curator, and one of the most influential people in financial services. And I also believe one heck of a great human being. Now, she didn't just show up, she made people pay attention. And we're going to break down those moments that changed everything for her, the strategies that worked, maybe talk about some of the ones that didn't work. This podcast is your blueprint, offering real strategies to make your voice rise above the noise. And I am Matt Halloran. I've spent many years helping experts like all of you grow your authority and your influence. If you're ready to stand out, this podcast is for you. All right, Sam, welcome to the show. How are you doing?
Hi, I'm well. Thank you so much for having me and for that great intro.
Well, I love the fact that we're talking to you. You are in the UK right now in your co-workspace. You sound fantastic, which of course is the number one thing that we're worried about. But as a person who has chickens, the egg crate behind you is only making me hungry for lunch. But so here's the first big picture question. When did you realize that you needed to stand out in a highly competitive, somewhat saturated environment? When did you realize that rising above the noise was going to be wildly important for you?
Well, good question. So probably really day one when entering the financial services space specifically, because the way that I got into the space was that my late husband and I started a business called 20 over 10, and we knew nobody in financial services other than one client that he'd done work for, and then our own financial advisor. So to kind of come in completely brand new and say, hey, everybody, you don't know anything about us. You don't know anything about why you should listen to us, why we are quote unquote, like have expertise in this, but not only listen to us, but then buy our product is really, really difficult. So I knew that we needed to garner attention through proof points that would prove that expertise and get people thinking and talking. So it was really day one, which is about 11 years ago at this point now.
Gotcha. So you started at day one, but then when did you actually feel it was working?
I would say, so we started a blog right when we launched our business and our website. So this is back in like 2016, 2017. And, I felt like for a while there we were just posting into the abyss. Nothing was happening. And then I can remember starting one day I logged into the Google Search Console tool and I started looking at where traffic was coming from and search queries people were doing. And I started to see us ranking for search terms like best financial advisor websites. And I was like, oh my gosh, like people found us just because Google sent them to us. And then there's a way you can look at all of the link backs to your site, which now we know is sort of decimated because of AI. But back then, people would go to Google and they'd get a list of websites. There was no AI somewhere at the top and they'd have to click through them. So I remember seeing, reputable online places, like sources I read linking to our blogs. And I was like, this is amazing. And this is before we ever got a prospect saying, I found you this way. So the attribution wasn't coming from the prospect, but I could see it in real time in the data. Wow.
Yeah. A lot of those, what now seems like 8 minutes ago, things that worked for us for a long time, especially from the analytics standpoint, really have been changed. Now, I'm going to digress for a moment because I know you and you're a student of this game. How do you flip that switch so that you're showing up in AI searches?
So the biggest common denominator we have found so far, it's really still the Wild West in a lot of ways, is for financial advisors. If someone is searching not a query that's education based, but they're specifically looking for a business, right? So show me the best financial advisors in Philadelphia that work with physicians. The best way that your best chance you have of showing up is to have reviews. It doesn't have to just be Google reviews. It could be, Trustpilot, it could be Wealth Tender, whatever, but reviews objectively from real human beings that have used your service that mention some of the things that the person doing the query is asking for. So if somebody says, I'm a physician in Philadelphia, and this advisor helped me pay down my medical bills from school and blah, blah, blah. So it's looking not just for the number of reviews and that they're 5-star or something, but also the context within the review itself. That is the biggest indicator when someone is searching for a financial advisor specifically for the business. Now, it's a different game if they're asking an educational question, like, something related to RSUs and a tax strategy. That's a little different. But if you just want your business to be listed, you really, really, really have to get reviews, and you really want to have some context in there related to the keywords you want to be found for.
Gotcha. All right. Thank you. I actually heard you talk about that at a conference. And so I was like, I know she knows about this. All right. Now let's talk about, you are all over the place, right? So you speak at so many conferences, and you are such a huge thought leader in financial services. When you see people trying to build their own influence, what are the common mistakes that you see that they're making?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think the first one is thinking that, if you don't yet already have, let's say you want to start going to conferences, and you want, or just in your local community, you want people to come to your talks about some subject matter. You feel like, I need to first get the bookings in order to do the talk. But the beauty of the internet is that you can talk to no one and everyone can see it. Yeah. So pretend you already have the gig, right? Dress for the job you want, not the job you have. So if you want to speak at conferences about some, obscure financial planning / tax topic, create videos educating people about that and start sharing them now on YouTube, on social media, on your website. And then people will start to say, oh, Samantha teaches people about this obscure tax planning and financial planning topic. It doesn't work the other way around, right? So I always like to say, just because you're already doing the work for other people, your work doesn't speak for itself. You speak for yourself. You do. You speak for yourself. So you have to be the one putting it out there. Nobody can see the work you're doing for your clients.
And by the way, that is the first strategy that you brought up, that when we asked you what are the 3 big takeaways that you're going to have for the show, that is your first one. Put yourself out there. Don't speak. Your work
doesn't speak for itself. Yes.
Yeah. That's freaking fantastic. Now, you had shared something with me. I don't remember where we were. Oh, it was Future Proof last year in Huntington Beach, and we were going out to dinner. I think it was you, me, and it might have been Mary Kate. I can't remember who else we were going out with, but you were talking about notoriety and stuff like that, and you had brought your kids to a conference. And would you mind sharing the story about that? Because I think it's important from the whole world of influence.
Okay, so I don't remember exactly what I said, but I do know that my kids think it's hilarious whenever they've gone with me. They've gone with me to 2 conferences just, and they're 3, 7, and 9, right? So I'm still very much, the 9-year-old's just breaking away, but for the other ones, like, I'm still in that sweet spot where I am their whole world. They want to be with me all the time. And so we go to this conference, and so many people are coming up to them and saying, like, I follow your mommy, or your mommy's amazing, or your mom helped me grow my business, or do you know your mom? She's like, they'll tease them. She's famous on LinkedIn, or I watch all your mom's YouTube videos. And my daughter was like, you have a YouTube channel? Like, she couldn't handle it. And they were just blown away by people, especially people wanting to take a selfie with me. Like, they couldn't handle it. And it was just really, really cute to see from their eyes. And that has happened slowly over time. And it is amazing to go to events and never be scared that I'm not going to have someone to talk to, not have someone to sit with at the lunch table, like, going back to high school, because the network that, you can build up a network online so that when you show up in these environments, you already have all of these friendships and connections. And it's really, really incredible.
Yeah. Well, I think a lot of people, you said something very important there, not just that your, kids now understand that you're actually legitimately famous in financial services, but that it takes time. I remember first seeing you when you in your 20 over 10 days, right? And I remember my advisors who I was coaching were sending me your blogs and saying, okay, I think we need to watch what's going on here, because they really seem to be thought leaders. And then, what some people will say is, man, Samantha came out of nowhere. No, you didn't. No, you've been putting in the reps for a long time. And now, you are considered one of the most, in the top 10, at least, most influential people in financial services, which I think is super, super cool. Now, my next question is, you are in a different situation than a lot of my guests because you're actually in the room with the top 1% of leaders regularly, in our industry, specifically in financial services. If they just looked at you and said, Samantha, if there's one thing that you could tell us that would change everything when it came to influence, what would you tell that 1%?
You mean if the people in the room, like the enterprise, big, large institutions, wanted to tap into that? I think the biggest issue that enterprises and financial services wrestle with is wanting to stay compliant, right? And they obviously, it's a real issue. There's huge fines, there's real cost to the customer, but at the same time, wanting to grow through organic marketing. And those two things butt heads all the time. And a lot of times what I sadly feel like it comes down to is not vetting the people that you're allowing to serve as advisors in your organization to begin with. If you let anyone off the street become an advisor without vetting to make sure they're going to be, responsible and do things the right way, you can have a huge problem. But the number one, there's been so many studies about why somebody leaves one institution and either go independent or join someone else. And number one always comes out to payouts, but the number two reason is always marketing.
Yeah.
And if someone feels like they're shackled by the constraints of marketing, we still have firms that come to us that their advisors cannot leave comments on LinkedIn on a post.
Yeah, I know.
They have to DM me, right? Like I'll say comment guide to get my guide and they send me a DM. I can't leave a comment, but here's, and again, I understand, but what's happening is we're letting one bad apple ruin the entire barrel. And that's just not good for business. So I think rather than saying, let's put a Band-Aid over the problem and not let anybody do anything, we need to get to the root source of how do we pull out the bad apples so that the other people can market the way that they need to. And so that is really, something that we're guiding people on. AI is helping though, right? So even at FMG, we just launched an AI Overwatch tool so that compliance departments can put in keywords. Like if we see this word, the post, comes down or it doesn't get approved. So AI is helping and hopefully that we'll start to see a big change.
Yeah. The race to the bottom has always been something that's wildly frustrating in any highly regulated environment. And the biggest issue is they're not staffing up their compliance as much as they should so that they actually have the reviews. They're not leaning into AI, which is unbelievably frustrating for all of us in the world of marketing. But three, as my children like to remind me, I was born in the 1900s. They're still marketing like it's the 1900s, right? They're still marketing like it's, you go to a BNI networking event and you're going to grow your entire business off of referrals. That's not how the game works because as you know, as well as I do, if you get a referral, if somebody refers me to Samantha, I'm going to Google the hell out of you. I'm going to check you out on my favorite social media platform to see if you're on the up and up. And if you can't be there, you don't exist in the eyes of most people. So, yeah.
And I think what's really interesting too is when we talk about influence, so much of getting a new client I think is very similar to dating, right? So if you think about when you're dating out there, if you're single, you think back to high school, whatever, the person who is desperate for the date never gets the date. The person who has all the options is the one who does. And the more that you aggressively call people, send you get somebody a lead and you're immediately like, want to book a meeting? You want to meet with me? This is how we can help you. The minute that you're sending someone a DM saying, we help people like you do this. And it just immediately kills it. Doesn't matter how good you are, it kills it. And a lot of firms are still selling as though they are the lowest rung of the dating pool, where instead, you want to be the magnet that people are drawn to. I don't need you. If you want my help, I help people like you. I don't even know if I have enough capacity to take you on right now, but if I did, this is how we would help you. That's the mentality that we want. It's the long game. It's the long game. And it is a game in some ways, right? Like, it is about putting out your best information, letting people be drawn to it like a magnet, and saying, hey, I don't work with this kind of person. This kind of person is a great fit for me, and being picky, all of those things. That analogy of dating, I think really, for someone who's in a very sales oriented mindset, they get it. Now, that doesn't mean that you don't have a system in place to nurture the inbound leads. That's another mistake people make. Some people think like, well, people are just going to chase me down. So if I'm really great, they'll chase me down. No, you need a system in place to nurture them, but we're nurturing them with the right kind of information, not a hard sale. So there's a big, big difference.
Well, and that's this idea of attraction marketing, right? I mean, and that's the world that we live in today. People want to do business with people they like. And you also talked about Dr. Robert Cialdini's principle of scarcity, right? And his 7 principles of ethical influence. If you look like you are desperate, as you said, if you look like you'll just work with anybody, nobody wants to work with you. But, if you are a nurse anesthetist in Texas, and I'm the one who specializes in working with them because I know who you are and what you do, that's the level of attraction marketing. And I think, Samantha, was a lot of advisors grew up in the rule of tens, right? 10,000 dials get you 100 appointments, get you 10 new clients. And that's not the world that we live in anymore. Those numbers just don't work.
Yeah. I think that what's really interesting too, it's funny. There's something I've coached people on that it just works wonders every time. Instead of just asking for referrals. Now, we know people aren't walking around being like, hey, do you want to know about my financial advisor? Hey, do you want to know about my financial advisor? That's not how it works. Yeah. They need that triggering moment to talk about it. But how much easier is it easier to say to a client, hey, do you know anybody that you could refer to us? Or is it easier to say, hey, I'm inviting you to this event. There's all of these scams going on right now related, at least in Pennsylvania where I live, to the tolls. Like, I get a text every day that I have an unpaid toll, right? Yeah. And there's a lot of elderly people falling victim to it. So we're going to have a webinar, workshop online, and we brought in a local FBI agent. We're going to talk about how to tell a scam from not. And we want you to come, and you can, bring your parents or whatever. And then the day later, email them and say, hey, we've had a ton of interest in this. And a lot of people are asking, can I invite a friend or a family member? So you can each invite 3 or 5, whatever, pick a number. Mm-hmm. That doesn't sound like, hey, do you know anyone you can refer me to? That sounds like we have this amazing thing we're offering, and we're allowing you to bring someone extra. That's the difference when it comes to mastering influence, to raise your brand and draw people to you rather than sell to them.
Well, and I'm just going to add a little to that. It's even easier to say, instead of, hey, who do you know who's just like you, who could use my help, which is the old referral ask that everybody did. What you can say is, hey, look, I found that I really love working with podiatrists. Do you know any podiatrists? Well, I have a podiatrist. Would you mind making that introduction? See, it's a very, very different thing. When you have that hyper focus, that laser focus on one specific niche, it actually makes it easier for people to refer to you. And then here's where the magic happens is they'll say, well, gosh, I don't know a podiatrist, but do you work with chiropractors? They're like podiatrists. Why, yes, I do. Right. And so it letting people focus in giving them the privilege, honestly, of saying, oh my, I love my podiatrist. Really, wow. If you love your podiatrist, I'd probably really love to meet her. That's the sort of stuff that can make a big difference. Okay. Now we're going to talk about your 3 tactics that you have used and that you talk about. And I've heard you talk about all of these on stage. And the first one was your work doesn't speak for itself. You have to do you. Now, the second one that you talk about, which I think is really fascinating, and nobody has said this on the show as of right now, don't talk like your peers, talk like your clients. You want to talk about that?
Yeah. So I'm shocked that more people don't talk about this just because, especially in our industry, I mean, I'm sure there's other industries similar, but especially in our industry, you go and you talk to people and they're still creating content or they're still using marketing messaging as though they wrote a paper for their, 12th grade English teacher where they were told you have to write 3 pages, sound smart, make sure it sounds like it's at a college level. They're filling the page with words. It doesn't really matter what the takeaway is. We haven't learned yet that there is a reason why, and I don't want to get political, but I think it is fascinating why messages, if we look at, political messages, make America great, right? It's 3 words and it's so easy to remember, right? There are Nike, just do it, right?
Yeah.
Like if you look at so many great campaigns that are memorable or the messages that we remember, they are written at a very simple level. And there's been a lot of research that shows that the average magazine or newspaper article is actually written at a 7th grade level. And that is because we are busy. It's not that we're dumb. It's because we're busy. And when we are scrolling social media or going through our inbox, we are looking for, does this matter? And will it make my day better, my life better in some way? Do I need to pay attention to it? And if the answer isn't an immediate yes, we move on. And if it's something that is a long paragraph or it's complicated to understand, we might say, we'll save that for later, we'll come back to it, or we just delete. So advisors need to stop talking like advisors and start talking like their clients in order to attract the attention first, get the attention, then keep it, and then help them understand why the message matters to them and applies to them. So what that looks like in principle is when you're crafting your email subject lines, right? If you're a business owner making more than $500,000 this year, pay attention. That's the email subject line, not weekly newsletter number 5. Big difference, right? So you're telling people this applies to you, this matters to you, pay attention. And obviously, like when we get into things like email, being able to segment your list really matters and things like that. But if you really look at what type of marketing advertising gets attention and keeps it and is remembered, it is very, very simple. But simple does not mean easy. Actually, simple is often the hardest messaging to create. So my tip is, when your clients are talking, write down using the exact words and phrases, the questions that they ask you, and you want to start creating content that sounds like them.
Yeah. When I used to write a lot of value props for advisors specifically, and when I had my own consulting practice, and the final test was, I referred to it as the 13-year-old girl test. And so I would always ask, hey, do you have, because I already knew their family structures, oh well, I've got a 10-year-old daughter or a 10-year-old niece. Okay, so here's what you're going to do. You're going to take your value proposition. You're going to go to her, not a him, a her, and you're going to say, Samantha, I'm going to tell you what I do, and I want you to tell me if you understand it. And because, especially if they're a 13-year-old girl, and in my experience, they're going to tell you if they get it or not, right? I mean, sometimes it can be brutal. I had clients come back and said, dude, I got roasted by my 13-year-old niece. Oh yeah, dude, I know, it's because it sucked. And I told you it sucked, but you didn't listen. But I love that whole idea of really looking at first off, the language that your clients use. And then secondly, keeping it simple and succinct is wildly important. And that is where generally you want to hire a firm to help you with that, making it succinct, because if not, man, that can be really hard. Now, your third one, you already touched on because you just touched on it. So your second and third one kind of bleed into each other, which is simplify the complicated. So what do you got for that one?
Just going back real quick too, if you're looking for a great way to see, is my messaging too high level and you don't have a 13-year-old girl to ask, you can use the Hemingway app. It's free online, and you can type in any content and it will tell you at what level is it written and how to make it not as complicated. So I love that app, use it all the time. And then it's funny, actually, I just gave an event or did a talk here for a live podcast recording here in London, the Real Advisor podcast. And everyone was having drinks and they were going to record this podcast. And they asked me to come and talk for 30 minutes about marketing for advisors. And I thought, everybody's, been drinking, like they don't want me to come up here with a slide deck. So I actually did a LinkedIn and website roasting, and I used AI tools to roast people's profiles. And it is so fun. So you can basically take screenshots of, let's say, your LinkedIn, and you upload it to ChatGPT and you say, I'm a financial advisor. I want to improve my marketing. These are the people I'm trying to connect with. Can you please roast my profile and make me sound better? And it will be brutally honest And it is hilarious. Like, it was making fun of my title. It was like, a chief evangelist. What do you think? You have a church of people coming to listen to your marketing? So it's true. My title, to this day, a lot of people are like, what the hell is a chief evangelist? And I should probably change it. But, I think that when it comes to messaging, there's this balance between novel things grab our attention. So what is new, we pay attention to, but we don't always want to try what is new, right? So there's a great talk Rory Sutherland gave, and he talks about, he's a amazing marketing mind here in London, was one of the founders of Ogilvy, huge ad agency. And he talks about a 1988 walking down Oxford Street on a cell phone, like a Zach Morris cell phone, and how people were like screaming swear words out the window of taxi cabs at him for how rude he was being on this phone. And he's like, nowadays, you would never in a million years question anyone having a cell phone. Like, can you think of someone over the age of 18 that doesn't own a mobile? No. But back then, if you asked somebody about, would you ever get a cell phone, or they called it a mobile phone back then, they would say, why would I need that?
Yeah.
Right? Like, it wasn't what they were already used to doing. So why would I need it? So we have this balance of, if there's something new that we've never tried before, what do? We look to other people in our life who've been there, done that. That's why referrals in this business are huge. And the social norms around it. That's why getting Google reviews are so important, and testimonials. But then we also pay attention to what is new. So if you're an advisor who specifically works with a certain niche that nobody's ever heard of that before, you get those eyeballs. So it's such a balance between the novel and the new, and then also something that people understand, know, and that they can say other people are doing it and it works. And it can be kind of an art to find where your business fits in that continuum.
Yeah. I'm sorry. I'm just picturing people walking down the street with those huge cell phones. Yeah, I'm sorry that those of you explained that so well that it was hard for me to not picture that walking down the street. I remember my uncle had one, and people just like they were unbelievably aggressively rude towards him because he was walking down, having a conversation. Even though that we were walking down the street having conversations, but it was the simple fact that it was so out of the ordinary. Now, you have fans. We've already established that because, your kids were like, hey, mom, you're super famous. Well, that's really weird. But you do have fans, Samantha, and there are people who seek you out at every conference that I see you at. It's hard for you.
Likewise for you.
Yeah. Walking, that you're not going to have people wanting to take pictures. And I think this is the $1 million question for this show specifically today, which is, how do you convert those loyal fans into clients? What systems do you have? What discipline do you have when somebody's like, I think Samantha is the greatest thing in the world? How do you get them into your pipeline and get them to close?
Yeah. So it's a little bit different for me now because working with FMG, we have a massive organization behind us, and people can work with us just for their websites, just for marketing systems, just for we have a texting solution now. So there's lots of different ways. So I am able now, when somebody's interested in getting help with their overall marketing, to have a team of people behind me that support me. But let's just take the example of speaking opportunities, because that is not related to FMG. And it's, I will go and do talks on my own separately. So one of the things that I really think is huge is when somebody does express interest, number one, thanking them for noticing. I always say, like, thank you for, the compliment that you're even considering me for this, or that you've paid attention, or that you signed up for my newsletter, or that you downloaded this. Like, thank you. Because again, our attention is being called in a million different places, and it's a huge thing that somebody even is paying attention to in the first place. And then the second thing I like to do is just double down with giving them a resource based on what they've already said. So if they said, I loved what you just posted about growing through LinkedIn, and I'm really trying to get better at my LinkedIn this year, I'll follow up by saying, and how can you help me? I'll follow up by saying, here are two amazing workshops that you should listen into that I gave last year. They're recorded. They're really actionable. Have your pen and paper ready to write it down or have your browser open, and it will help you revamp your LinkedIn profile. And oh, by the way, here's, how we can have a further conversation about me coming in and doing a LinkedIn workshop for your 30 advisors. So thank them, then follow up with something that just doubles down on the value that you can already provide. So whether they continue to work with you or not, you're giving them something, and then tell them what the next step is. If they've already said, hey, I'm interested in working with you, it would be time to discuss. But maybe they're just saying, hey, what you shared really spoke to me. Maybe we could work together in the future. I wouldn't go straight into the sale. I'd ask follow-up questions. I would say, what are you looking to do? What are your growth goals? What kind of marketing are you already doing? So I think just showing a genuine interest in helping has really been the key for me, at least, in keeping people interested.
Gotcha. So you just opened a huge can of worms, and I wasn't intending, well, I mean, mostly because I didn't know, but I really do have to ask you this. So you are part of a very large organization. It's very, very, very well known in financial services. How are you balancing that from a branding perspective? Because I mean, let's be honest, you're the face of FMG.
Yeah.
How do you still maintain the Samantha Russellness while still maintaining you being the face of a humongous organization?
It's such a good question. And, I don't know if I have like a set formula, but I think we all know that there's things that you do with a personal brand that just cannot scale or shouldn't scale. And those things should stay separate. And we do that purposely. So like on my own personal social media, I can share stories or failures or successes that are specific to me that help people create a relationship with me, a connection with me, make me trustworthy, that have nothing to do with FMG's successes, right? It's just related. It's my personal stories, things like that. And with FMG, I am really, really focused on talking to the advisors that use our tools all the time, asking them what's working, what's not, what would you like to see more or less of, going back to the product team and giving them that feedback so we can make it better. And then constantly hosting workshops and events for our clients so that they can see, okay, in real time, like we made the product better based on what you said, and here's how to now use it. So I think every single person on earth needs a personal brand, because let's face it, we are a human first. Whatever business, whether it's a business you own, a business you work for, the business is the business. It's not you. It doesn't have a soul the way a human has a soul. And so you need to have both. And what really is amazing is when you have multiple people within an organization that start to be the face of the organization. I think every business wants employees posting about the business all the time. So we're really lucky at FMG, right? We have Susan Theater, for instance, our CMO, and she's out there speaking and doing things on behalf of FMG, and I am as well. So yes, while intentionally I'm the chief evangelist, my job is to be out there. We're really trying to cultivate having multiple people, and any business we work with, that's what we advise. Like, you need to have a few key people that are out there being the face, because that's what people pay attention to.
Yeah. That was a big shift that we did here at ProudMouth about a year ago, where our longest term employee, her name is Jessica Brown, her and I started doing webinars together, and not only her personal brand, but her brand within ProudMouth has like blown up, because there are people who want to interact with her, and then there's people who want to interact with me. And then Kirk, the co-founder, the CEO of our company, every once in a while he puts stuff out there, and he's got a very loyal following. And I wholeheartedly agree. I just think it's interesting with this whole idea of having your own personal brand, and how that actually complements what's going on, because it allows you to feed your soul, but it's still, when people Google you, chief evangelist at FMG is what generally comes up, but you're still able to go ahead and express yourself. And so let's talk about the community. This is one of the neat things that I've seen with your organization, because I've known you guys for so long, that you guys have built a community of people who are consistently looking to you as the thought leaders, as people that they want to listen to, because you guys have such good information. How do you keep up with that pace?
I am asked this all the time, and I think like
Mm.
at heart, I don't know if you can fake it. I am just a true nerd. Like I don't watch TV. I don't watch movies. If I have downtime, I'm reading about ads that worked, or my head's in a book from 20 years ago about certain, influence principles, or I'm listening to a podcast. I'm focused always on the intersection of, business principles, macroeconomics, where things are heading just globally, technology, finance and marketing, and then a lot of behavioral stuff too, because I think
Mm.
so much of, we want to make products better. We want to make services faster. But what we don't realize is a lot of times if we can just make people feel less uncomfortable with the waiting or less uncomfortable with the volatility, that's the key, right? It's not actually, you don't need to necessarily make the product better or the process better or the experience better. You need better communication so that the person can sit with the ambiguity easier. It's like Uber, right? Uber didn't add, when they were thinking about making this app, for years and years, people have not hitchhiked. So the idea of getting in a stranger's car is a really, really hard thing to wrap your head around. But they came up with this idea of the Uber map. So you can see at any one time where that car is going to be. And now if I have to wait for a taxi and they say, okay, we'll be there in 20 minutes. When do I go outside? How far away are they? What if they got stuck at a red light? I don't know. Whereas if it says on the Uber map, okay, they're going to be here in 20 minutes and it takes 25, but I can see they're stuck in traffic, I don't even care because I could see where the car is. So they didn't make the car faster. They didn't add anything special to the experience. They just gave me more information.
Yeah.
And I think in so many financial advisory businesses, that's one of the things that's missing is that people, they think, oh, clients don't want to hear from me all the time, or I don't want to be in, bothering people. But the people will fill the vacuum when there's less information with whatever they find online.
Well, and what Uber did was they increased the confidence that you have in the rider by being transparent. And I think in financial services, in a lot of areas of expertise, they don't really increase your confidence, right? It's trust me. No, don't say that, man. That drives me crazy. By the way, we're your trustworthy resource. Oh God, now you use the word, I don't trust you immediately. Prove it, right? And how do you prove it? Now, if you were going to give all of our listeners one critical piece based off of your experience in your rise to celebrity within financial services specifically, to financial advisors and to the greater expert community, right? So the goal of this show is to not just specifically, even though our niche is financial services, but to bring on people and have other people listen who are in fields of expertise that and they want to become more influential. If you were going to say tomorrow, if you would just do this thing, that would truly accelerate your influence, what would that be?
Show up consistently, giving away information that helps people do X better, whatever it is. So like for me, it's helping financial advisors grow through marketing. For somebody else listening, it might be a financial advisor that's helping business owners sell their practice or, save a lot of money on taxes, and just sharing in little tidbits, right? We're talking 60 to 90 seconds to read or watch or listen to, whatever it's going to be, whatever that is. I will say though, if you're going to record a podcast or video, that's best because people can hear your voice, see your face. If you just want it to be text though, you don't feel comfortable, that's fine. But get in the habit of sharing photos that include your face, because there's so much research from psychology that proves humans are drawn to faces from the time we're born as babies. We are drawn to other human faces and we remember them. We don't remember logos the same way we remember faces. So by just having your face consistently be there in pictures, even if you just want to do text posts, that will make a big difference in how memorable you are.
Nice. All right. So your 3 talking points, your 3 big things to help people grow their authority was put yourself out there. Your work doesn't speak for itself. You do. Don't talk like your peers, talk like your clients, and simplify the complicated. My favorite question to ask, I love asking people like you this because I love how your brain works, is what should I have asked you that I didn't?
I think the thing that you didn't ask is maybe what I'm most excited for, what I see on the
Ooh,
I
okay.
see on the horizon.
Yeah, do that.
And I think one of the things that's so amazing right now is the idea of these micro influencers, right? So like it used to be on Instagram to work with big brands and get contracts and stuff. You needed to have 100,000, 500,000, a million followers. Now we see people working, with hotels and restaurants or whatever and getting paid good money who barely have a following, but the people that do follow them trust them so inherently. And there's such a, the niches keep getting smaller. But what that tells me is that, we all are so unique and we like that we're unique, and we want somebody who is a mom who lives in Pennsylvania, who has 3 kids, who works, digitally and can work anywhere, to give us their travel tips. Like that specificity is just becoming increasingly more so. But what it means is that people get nervous, like, why would I start a podcast today? Or why would I start a YouTube channel? Or why would I start a social like all these people are already doing it. There is so much more room for other voices.
Mhm.
And because of the proliferation of AI, people are really, really looking for the unique voices, because we don't want another how to apply for Social Security or the 5 things to think about before you retire post. We want stories that connect with us. So I'm really excited just for such an opportunity for people who've never done it, even though it's 2025, like they've never really created content, they've never put themselves out there, could start tomorrow and see massive success in this year.
Nice. All right. So I'm sure that there's going to be people who want to reach out to you, who maybe want you to come speak or to be involved with your world in general. Who should call you and where should they go?
Yeah. So whether you're an advisor who just wants to maybe get more help with your marketing, or you're an enterprise who wants to deliver solutions like this at scale, or you just have a conference or event, you need a speaker to host a workshop or a training. I do a lot of training on LinkedIn for sales teams, things like that. You can just go to LinkedIn's probably easiest, Samantha C. Russell, or you can email me, samantha.russell@fmgsuite.com. And then if you go to FMG's website, we actually have an amazing resource anyone can download. It's our 2025 marketing guide for advisors. Our team put together, broken into 5 sections. So it covers everything from events to video to social media to websites. And in each section, there's a QR code that you can scan or click a link. And there is a kind of a video will pop up of me teaching you something really tactical. So got to check that out. It's really, really, everybody who's downloaded has told me they've learned at least one thing from it. So.
Well, it's pretty good. It's pretty good results. And that's one of the great things about your organization, about your personal brand, is you basically give everything away. And then people opt in to want to live, experience your assistance. I love your guys' transparency. And of course, I love your organization. We've heard a lot of business to you guys. So, all right, everybody, that's a wrap for this episode of Rise Above the Noise. If this conversation gave you something to think about, please make sure that you share it with somebody who'd appreciate it. And since we're just starting the show, if you have not liked this or subscribed to it, please make sure that you do. And for more insights and exclusive content, read Sam's playbook. So there's going to be a link in the show notes where you can download the playbook that we've created off of all of the wonderful things that Samantha Russell has said today. And we really appreciate all of you for listening. So I am Matt Halloran, and I will see you on the other side of the mic very soon. Hey, don't touch that dial yet. Before you go, get a copy of the tools and strategies to rise above the noise shared by our guests in this week's playbook. To claim your free playbook and access our growing collection, go to proudmouth.com/playbook. Hey, thanks for tuning in. Here's to rising above the noise, one episode at a time.